The midnight air was heavy as Emma, Zoe, Mia, Claire, and Sarah stepped out of their car. The graveyard stretched endlessly before them, shrouded in a dense fog that muffled their footsteps. They had come here on a dare, a spontaneous challenge fueled by boredom and an insatiable thirst for adventure. It was Emma's idea, and as the boldest among them, she held the Ouija board tightly in her hands, her face lit with a mischievous grin. "Come on," Emma urged, leading the way. "How often do you get a chance to do something this thrilling?" "It's just a game." Mia hesitated, clutching her jacket closer. "It's not just a game, Emma. You've heard the stories." "Exactly," Emma said with a chuckle. "Stories. Made-up nonsense to keep us from having a little fun. Now." They trudged through the rows of weathered tombstones, the names of the dead barely visible in the dim moonlight. The air seemed to hum with an unnatural stillness, as though the graveyard itself was holding its breath. Finally, they found a secluded corner beneath a sprawling oak tree, whose gnarled branches loomed like skeletal arms. Emma placed the Ouija board on a flat patch of grass, setting up the planchette in the center. The others gathered around, their flashlights casting long shadows over the engraved letters and numbers. "Okay," Emma said, her voice taking on a theatrical tone. "Everyone place your fingers on the planchette. Let's see who wants to talk to us tonight." Zoe rolled her eyes, but complied. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, though her hands trembled slightly as they made contact with the smooth surface. Sarah whispered a quiet prayer under her breath, her wide eyes darting nervously at every flicker of movement in the dark. Claire, ever the skeptic, sighed heavily but joined in, if only to prove Emma wrong. "Spirits of the graveyard," Emma intoned dramatically. "If you are here with us, give us a sign. Move the planchette." For a long moment, nothing happened. The silence stretched, broken only by the distant rustling of leaves. Just as Zoe opened her mouth to make a sarcastic comment, the planchette jerked beneath their fingers. Mia gasped. "Did you guys see that?" "I didn't move it." "Neither did I," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. Emma grinned, her excitement palpable. "See? I told you. Now, let's ask it something." The planchette began to move again, slowly at first, then with increasing speed. It spelled out the letters one by one. H-E-L-P. Help? Claire frowned. "What kind of help? What happened to you?" Emma asked eagerly. The planchette zipped across the board, spelling out another chilling message. Trapped. Mia shivered. "Trapped where?" B-E-L-O-W. A sharp wind howled through the graveyard, sending shivers down their spines. The oak tree's branches creaked ominously, as though responding to the unseen presence. "Okay, this is getting creepy," Zoe said, pulling her hands away. "I think we should stop." "We can't stop now," Emma insisted, her eyes blazing with determination. "We have to find out more. Who trapped you?" The response was immediate. D-O-N-T. "Don't what?" Sarah whispered. The planchette moved violently, almost as if the spirit itself was frantic. D-O-N-T-L-O-O-K. B-E-H-I-N-D. Mia froze, her breath hitching in her throat. Slowly, instinctively, her eyes darted toward the others, silently pleading for reassurance. They were all paralyzed by the chilling warning. "This isn't funny anymore," Claire said, her voice trembling. "We should leave." Just as Emma opened her mouth to protest, a blood-curdling scream tore through the night. It came from somewhere behind them, a sound so raw and inhuman that it seemed to claw at their very souls. They whipped around, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Standing a few feet away was a figure cloaked in shadow. Its face was obscured, but its presence was suffocating. It took a step forward, and the beam of light from Mia's flashlight revealed a man with a gaunt, sunken face and hollow eyes that seemed to pierce right through. "Who are you?" Emma demanded, her voice quaking despite her attempt to sound brave. The figure didn't answer. Instead, it raised a hand, pointing directly at the Ouija board. The planchette began moving on its own, faster than any of them could have controlled. L-E-A-V-E-N-O-W. The group scrambled to their feet, adrenaline kicking in. Emma grabbed the Ouija board, but as she did, The figure let out an ear-piercing wail and charged toward. They screamed, stumbling over tombstones as they ran for their lives. The graveyard seemed to stretch endlessly, every path looking identical in the disorienting fog. Sarah tripped, falling hard onto the ground. Mia and Zoe stopped to help her, their breaths coming in ragged. "We have to keep moving," Claire shouted, her voice breaking with panic. "It's coming!" Behind them, the figure's wails grew louder, closer. Emma turned back, clutching the Ouija board like a... She could see the shadow looming ever closer, its movements unnaturally jerky, as though it were being controlled by invisible... "This way!" Zoe yelled, spotting the faint outline of their car through the mist. They bolted toward it, their hearts pounding as the figure's cries echoed in their ear. They reached the car and piled in, slamming the doors shut. Emma fumbled with the keys, her hands shaking so violently that she dropped. "Hurry up!" Mia screamed, tears streaming down her face. Emma finally started the engine, and the car roared to life. They sped out of the graveyard, the tires kicking up gravel as they left the shadowy figure behind. But even as they put distance between themselves and the graveyard, the oppressive feeling lingered, as though they were still being warned. Back at Zoe's house, the group sat in silence, their faces pale and drawn. The Ouija board lay on the coffee table, an unspoken source of... "We should burn it," Sarah said, finally, breaking the... Emma shook her head. "Number? That thing said it needed help. Maybe we should..." "No," Claire interrupted firmly. "We're done with this. Whatever that was, it wasn't something we can help. It's..." Reluctantly, Emma agreed. They took the board outside and set it ablaze, watching as the flames consumed. But even as the fire crackled and the board turned to ash, they couldn't shake the feeling that they had only scratched the surface of something far darker than they could comprehend. In the weeks that followed, each of them began experiencing strange occurrences. Objects would move on their own. Whispers filled the silence at night. Shadows danced just beyond the edge of their... It was as though they had brought something back with them, something that refused to let... Emma's dreams were the worst. Night after night, she saw the figure from the graveyard, its hollow eyes staring at her as it whispered a single word. Despite their efforts to move on, the memory of that night haunted them all, and deep down, they knew the graveyard's warning hadn't been it had been a